Hi everyone, I hope you're really well. Now, the animal I get asked to paint more than any other, particularly at this time of year, is the Highland coo, or Highland cattle, Highland cow. And I decided to do a really special one where I've gone into quite a lot of detail, really slowed down and enjoyed the process of watercolour painting. And there are loads of really fun techniques in here that help you achieve beautiful contrast and then that wonderful cow in the middle. So today, that is what we are painting. But also, if you love a Highland coo, then you need to know that on the February page of our brand new Paint Your Own calendar for 2026, there's one of these. So, cows everywhere. How lucky are we? Grab your paints and let's get started. I've got a 6x8 piece of paper, but I'm just going to do a piece sort of right in the middle of it here. So I'm going to create a bit of a horizon line and a bit of a sort of mountainous hill in the background. And then I'm going to have my cow kind of in sort of the middle here, and we'll have grasses kind of coming up around. And so the coo, we do have a really simplified, like almost like cartoonish cow tutorial on here. I thought I'd do one that's just maybe a little bit more detailed. So I'm going to start with the top of the head and just sort of get some ears from the side there, sort of big block of the forehead and the ear. And then coming down, we're going to get a nice muzzle, which is the real helpful kind of anchoring point of painting and drawing these guys. And there we have a lovely sort of muzzle to paint around. And then the hair really sort of comes over and covers a lot of the detail of the new face, which is quite useful if you don't really like drawing faces, like I'm inclined not to. And then some horns just coming out there. And don't forget, if you hate drawing, when we've come to the end of this section, you can just pause the video, take a screenshot, and then you're good. So now we're going to go down the front of the body, just creating a sort of shaggy kind of torso that's going to just come out from the neck there. And that means that I can then bring a shoulder round and a shoulder from the front there as well, which sort of gives us a front area, and then quite a boxy back and just a bit of a swell of a tummy. And that's all we're really going to see, because then we're going to have lots of grasses coming up around, and that's our little kind of vignette of our Highland coo. Now, like I said, this is the time to pause the video, take a screen grab, and now I'm going to start doing a little bit of rubbing out. So first things first is I like to rub out anything that I don't want to have there anymore at all. So some bits that might have overlapped. And then I use my kneadable eraser to just roll it, lighten up the colour of the pencil, because I don't want to see too much of that pencil when I am painting. And now we can start to build up the scene. And I bet you didn't expect me to go for blue first, but I want to get just a pale sky in there. We're going to do the background first, so I'm going to get some muted colours, so just cooling down burnt sienna with a bit of Payne's grey there. I'm going to take a bit of yellow ochre. I want actually a little bit of alizarin crimson and a bit of green gold, just some sort of earthy kind of tones to create a nice backdrop, and I think deep sap green will be good as well. It's not too vibrant. And I'm going to take a large brush. I'm going to take a size 8. Make sure it's nicely warmed up, nice and clean. And I'm going to begin to paint in my backdrop. So starting with the sky, you can see I'm painting it in with some texture there. But now I'm going to leave it, and I am going to start coming up from the bottom here, where the sort of base of the hill is. And I've got my deep sap green, and I've even got a little bit of Payne's grey. It's all very wet on wet, this. And now I'm going to start just slowly building up this hill, trying to sort of use little textures by just allowing for little bits of unpainted space. And also I'm quite looking forward to there being a bit of that run on into the sky, little bits here and there. So don't worry if you get a little bit of a bleed and a blend. I'm using my size 4 brush, and I'm just sort of creating a bit of an undulation on the hill, sort of coming down there. And we'll just get a bit of that grey in, a few rocks and things. But this is very wet on wet, so that means our colour needs to be very pale and dilute. And I work with a large-ish brush. I say ish because there are much larger ones in my kit, but I just fancied the control of this size 4 brush because I am going around the edge of the Highland cow in the foreground. So that feels really nice. What I will do is I'll just go down a few sizes to a size 0, take a little bit more Payne's grey, just make a slightly stronger colour. And you know, I'm letting this dry just a fraction, and I'm just going to allow for a tiny bit of scribbly detail, but very minimal. Really, the scribbly detail comes from where I've left little bits unpainted on the hill. But it is going to bleed and blend into anything that has already been wetted. And then what we're going to do is contrast it with a nice detailed Highland cow in the foreground. But what I'm also going to do is I'm going to build up the colour of the field. So I've got some yellow ochre and then the green gold, and a little bit of a gap between. I want to get a bit of a texture in. Still making it very light because there's going to be layers to build up over the top. I'm going to take a bit of deep sap green, just place it into there, into the mix. And I'm going to get a smaller brush, size 0. And just create a nice sort of darker texture. And you can see that even with the wet page, I'm getting a little bit of detail hanging in there with the green on the wash. but it is going to probably settle in a little bit more. So we'll just let that dry and then we'll move on to the cow. Right, that's dried really nicely, and now I've got some colours for the cow. I've got some Pyrrol orange, and I also want some permanent orange. I've got burnt sienna, raw sienna, and moon glow, and that feels like a good starting point. So I'm going to begin by painting in a wash onto the cow, and actually I think let's go for a size 2 brush. And I want to really sort of get the lovely texture of the shaggy fur. And I'll sort of get in some of the light and shade and darkness from the get-go. So there's going to be quite a lot of darkness sort of coming down the front. So it really does matter how your brush strokes fall, even in this early sort of quite loose stage. So you can see how I'm making them sort of hang down and come out from the middle there. I'm also going to take a little bit of deep sap green and Payne's grey and a bit of burnt sienna, I think, as well. I just want to have that colour kind of ready down in here. So we've got sort of the grasses coming across at the same time. Lots of things to be thinking about. So I'm going to just build up the body and the contours using this kind of technique. And then when we get to the face, I'm just going to go down a size of brush, and it's going to be all about thinking about where the light is hitting. So obviously the light will be hitting the top of the head, top of the nose, and also this muzzle is a sort of warm pinky brown colour too, so we can paint that in, but that's a sort of smoother finish. And then as things start to dry, can start to build up the colours just a little bit more, and maybe just start to bring in a bit of darker colour as I contour around the side of the face. And also the eyes that we don't think we see, but actually, look, they've just popped up there. So it's just a slow process, a slow build up. Until we get a lovely fully coloured in face. So I'm starting to use some deeper, darker tones of burnt sienna and Payne's grey. and just starting to really build up the sort of contours and the shadow. Just thinking about where the light's falling and hitting the body. And also keeping those nice sort of warm, rich tones going as well, so that it's not just getting darker and darker. It's one of those ones where you'll be sort of chipping away at it for ages, and then suddenly it'll look how you want it to look, but you just have to keep on sort of persevering. And this is the kind of one that sort of Googling for a reference photo, just to sort of remind yourself of what a cow looks like, sometimes can be rather useful. And this is also a really good lesson in contrast with watercolour, because you sort of think, oh yeah, I'm going darker, that's all good. But actually, what we need to be doing is building up that contrast as we keep going round. So you can see I've just brought in a bit more Payne's grey into this piece, and it's really starting to help show the piece. So I'm just going to keep sort of chipping away, finding more golden tones. And we also need to look at the horns and the muzzle. So let's do that for a minute. I'm going to use some of this sort of warm orangey colour just to start off with. Not very much of it, and then darken it down, wet on wet, almost immediately. And that gives you that lovely colour. And then for the nose, we'll do a similar thing where I'm going to just sort of create nice contours with a nice bit of sort of warmth on it. We need to let that dry, and then we can go in with a little bit of darker colour and just crisp it up a little bit. We're edging ever closer to getting our cow done, but what I thought I would do in the meantime is just build up some of these earthy tones to get our grasses really going, and also to just integrate the cow into the field a bit more. So I'm using my rigger brush, and I'm just using the dark earthy shades, and then I'm going to take a clean wet brush, kind of largish brush, and I just want to merge and blend some of these grasses, because what can happen is they just sort of sit there plonked on top and can feel a little bit sort of like they're not part of it, and I quite like a bit of that dry brushing in there as well for a little bit of a different texture. Okay, so I'm really pleased with how this is turning out. It feels like quite a quite a serious Highland cow. But yeah, it's looking nice. So what I think now is we just need to let everything dry, 100%. Then I'm going to rub out the pencil that's left, and then I'm going to finish off just with a little bit of detail in there, and I think we'll have it. So I've rubbed out all the pencil, and the page is nice and dry, and what I'm now going to do is take a little bit of Moonglow and Payne's Grey and just mixed into this nice sort of shadowy mix here. And I've got a 4/10 brush. I'm going to begin by putting in those two little curves, and then I've cleaned my brush off, because you don't need tons of colour on the brush, and you get a much more sort of realistic impression if you get a little bit of light and shade in there. And that is the same for the mouth as well. And then I'm going to take a slightly larger brush, try and get it clean. Just get a little bit of the warm colour on there. And just make it kind of part of it. I just want to soften those in a little bit. There we go. And the last thing is just to really create a bit more of the contour of the body. I'm going to use this shadowy colour to just enhance those little bits that tell us sort of where things are. So this is really some sort of textured layering. Now the colour is much thicker and drier in watercolour terms. We're almost sort of dry brushing onto the page. And I'm just trying to do it with not too much colour on my brush, so it's a bit of a slow process, but it means that we can really get those lovely contours in there and really sort of get it grounded in the piece. I'm really pleased with this piece. Sometimes when I'm teaching you things, I will paint and I'll be happy with it, but I'll be thinking, oh, well, I've painted that as a tutorial. And then every now and then I paint something and I think I would have painted it like that even if I was trying to do it as a commission. And this sort of feels a bit like that. So it's important that we say when we're proud of a piece. And I think it's probably time to stop. So thank you very, very much. I hope you enjoyed that. And we have a Highland coup in our brand new botanical calendar for 2026, which you can get in my Etsy shop and website shop. If you're in America, Etsy ships to America. Our website, we're still working on it, so just so you know. But we've got all the same products in both shops. But thank you so much for watching, and comment below to let me know how you got on with that one and what you think of it. And of course, if you never want to miss another video, then make sure you are subscribed to our channel. And I will see you again next time. Bye!